Chapter 8 The Trunchbull. In the interval way, Miss Honey left the classroom and headed straight for the headmistress's study. She felt wildly excited. She had just met a small girl who possessed, or so it seemed to her, quite extraordinary qualities of brilliance. There had not been time yet to find out exactly how brilliant this child was, but Miss Honey had learned to realize that something had to be done about this as soon as possible. It would be ridiculous to leave a child like that stuck in the bottom form. Normally Miss Honey was terrified of the headmistress and kept away from her, but at this moment she felt ready to take on anybody. She knocked on the door of the dreaded private study. "Enter!" boomed a deep, dangerous voice of the Trunchbull. Miss Honey went in. Most head teachers are chosen because they possess a number of fine qualities. They understand children, and they have children's best interests at heart. They are sympathetic, and they are fair, and deeply interested in education. Miss Trunchbull possessed none of these qualities, and how she ever got the present job was a mystery. She was above all most formidable female. She had once been a famous athlete, and even now the muscles were still clearly in evidence. You could see them in the bull neck and in the big shoulders, in the thick arms and in the sinewy wrists, and in the powerful legs. Looking at her, you got the feeling that it was someone who could be in iron bars, and their tier telephone directories in half. Her face, I'm afraid, was neither a thing of beauty or joy. She had an obstinate chin, a cruel mouth, and small, arrogant eyes. And her clothes. They were, to say the least, extremely odd. She always had a brown cotton smock on, which was pinched around the waist with a wide-letter belt. The belt was fastened in front of her with an enormous silver buckle. The massive thighs which emerged from the out of the smock were encased in a pair of extraordinary breeches, bottle green in color, and made of coarse twill. These breeches reached to just below the knees, and from there on down she sported green stockings with turn-up tops, which displayed her calf muscles to perfection. On her feet she wore flat-heeled brown burgess with a leather flap. She looked short, more like rather eccentric and bloodthirsty follower of staghounds than a headmistress of a nice school for children. When Miss Honey entered the study, Miss Trunchbull was standing beside her huge desk, with a look of scowling impatience on her face. "Yes, Miss Honey," she said. "What do you want? You're looking very flushed and flustered this morning. What's the matter with you? Have you got one of those little stinkers flicking spitballs at you?" "No, Miss Headmistress. Nothing like that." "Well, what is it then? Get on with it. I'm busy." As she spoke, she reached out and poured herself a glass of water from a jug that was always on her desk. "There's a little girl in my class called Matilda Wormwood," Miss Honey began. "That's the daughter of the man who owns Mr. Wormwood Motors in the village," Miss Trunchbull barked. She hardly ever spoke in the normal voice. She either barked or shouted. "An excellent person, Wormwood," she went on. "I was there only yesterday. He sold me a car. Almost new. It had only done 10,000 miles. Previous owner was an old lady who took it once a year to the most traffic margin." "Yes, I like Wormwood. A real pillar of society. Hugh told me his daughter was a bad lot, though. He said to watch her. He said anything bad ever happened in the school, it was certain to be his daughter who did it." I haven't met the little brat yet, but she'll know about it when I do. Her father said she's a real wart. No, headmistress. That can't be right, Miss Honey cried. Oh, yes, Miss Honey. It darn as well be right. In fact, I know. Now, come to think of it, I bet she was the one who put the stink bomb under my desk the first thing in the morning. The place stank like a sewer. Of course it was her. I shall love her. I shall have her for that. You see if I don't. What's she look like? Nasty little worm. I'll be bound. I have discovered, Miss Honey, during my long career as a teacher, that a bad girl is far more dangerous creature than a bad boy. What's more, they're harder to squash. Squashing a bad girl is like trying to squash a blue bottle. You bang down on it, and the darn thing isn't there. The nasty, dirty things little girls are. Glad I never was one. Oh, but you must have been a little girl once, headmistress. Surely you were. Not for long, anyway, the Trunchbull barked. I became a woman very quickly. She was completely off her rocker, Miss Honey told herself. She's barmy as a bedbug. Miss Honey stood there resolutely before the headmistress. For once, she was not going to be browbeaten. I must tell you, headmistress, she said, that you are completely mistaken about Matilda putting a stink bomb under your desk. I am never mistaken, Miss Honey. But, headmistress, the child only arrived in school this morning, and she came straight to the classroom. Don't argue with me, for heaven's sake, woman. The little brute Matilda, or whatever her name is had a stink bomb in my study. There's no doubt about it. Thank you for suggesting it. But I didn't suggest it, headmistress. Of course you did. What is it you want, Miss Honey? Why are you wasting my time? I came to talk to you about Matilda, headmistress. I have extraordinary things to report about the child. May I please tell you what happened in my class just now? I suppose, she said. Set fire to your skirt and scorch your knickers, Miss Trunchbull snorted. No, no, Miss Honey, cried out. Matilda's a genius. At the mention of those words, Miss Trunchbull turned purple-faced, and her whole body seemed to swell up like a bullfrog. A genius, she shouted. What piffle are you talking, madame? You must be out of your mind. I have the father's word. You must be out of your mind. For the child is a gangster. Her father was wrong, headmistress. Don't be a twerp, Miss Honey. You have met a little brat for only half an hour, and her father has known her whole life. But Miss Honey was determined to have her say, and now she began to describe some of the amazing things Matilda had done with arithmetic. So she learnt a few tables by heart, has she? Miss Trunchbull barked. My dear woman, that doesn't make her a genius, it makes her a parrot. But, headmistress, she can read. So can I, the Trunchbull snapped. It's my opinion, Miss Honey said, that Matilda should be taken out from my class and placed immediately in the top form, which the 11-year-olds. Ha! snorted Miss Trunchbull. So you want to get rid of her, do you? So you can't handle her. So now you want to unload her onto the wretched Miss Plimsoll in the top form, where she will cause even more chaos. No, no, cried Miss Honey, that's not my reason at all. Oh, yes it is, shouted the Trunchbull. I can see right through your little plot, madame. And my answer is no. Matilda stays where she is, and it is up to you to see that she behaves herself. But, headmistress, please. Not another word, shouted Miss Trunchbull. And in my case, I have a rule that this school, that all children remain in their own age groups, regardless of ability. Great Scott, I'm not having little 5-year-old brigands studying with the senior boys and girls in the top form. Who ever heard of such a thing? Miss Honey stood there helpless before the great red-necked giant. There was a lot more she would like to have said, but she knew it was useless. She softly and said, Very well. Then it's up to you, headmistress. You're darn right it's up to me, the Trunchbull bellowed. And don't forget, madame, we're dealing with a little viper who put a stink bomb under my desk. She did not do that, headmistress. Of course she did, the Trunchbull boomed. And I'll tell you what, I wish to heavens it was the good old days when I had roasted Matilda's bottom for her so she couldn't sit down. Miss Honey turned and walked out of the study, feeling depressed, by no means defeated. I am going to do something about this child, she told herself. I don't know what it is, or what it'll be, but I shall find a way to help her in the end.